What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to the start of the week, gang. Monday show. 3:30 in the afternoon, couple minutes after. Just got a couple projections, couple lineup confirmations uploaded on the site. We're going to kind of cruise through this one, try and make maybe a little bit better pace than we've made throughout the year. Just to, we got a football slate to get to for the single gamer for Monday Night Football, Jets and the Niners a little bit later on in the day, so we've got to account for that. Plus, kind of small slates, we've got 6 games to go through, kind of weak prize pools. Getting toward the end of the baseball season, people's attention is elsewhere. We're obviously going to take our usual time and take our usual tour through it, but we will keep the pace up to a decent degree today so that we can get to a football show in a little while. Haven't put that on the schedule yet, but figure 6:30 once we're done with this. Got the board set up, projections for football are live, projections for this slate are live and just got updated. Hopefully you guys had some good weekends out there. I see Harold Haas is in the chat. Harold saying, hope you all had a great day so far. Finish out the day with some big wins. Sounds good to me, buddy. I like that. Successful first weekend of NFL. Thought we were all over that slate. Baker Mayfield, most specifically, really came through as our favorite, kind of underappreciated quarterback of the week. We didn't have him at the very top of the projections board, but I think he was third among the projected quarterbacks. I think we had him a couple points higher than everybody else did. Had him featured the above-below column. If you guys aren't reading the above-below whenever I get it out Sunday morning, you're missing out a little bit. That thing was hot last season. Started out the season pretty well this week. So hopefully some people out there took down some winnings. Saw some decent screenshots in there, but I think there's some other winners lurking out there that haven't mentioned anything yet. I'd love to see it if you did. And with that, let's dive into this baseball slate. We've got an interesting one to talk about. Definitely a fair number of pitchers on the board to work with. It's not the best pitching slate. It peaks with Carlos Rodon, but I think there's workable options kind of throughout. It's not an uninteresting board pitching-wise. There's targetable spots. Everybody's basically affordable. Highest price on DK peaks at $8,800 for Rodon. You also get 86 on David Festa is a little weird. He's good. It's a gettable spot. But 86 on DK versus 85 on FanDuel is a better bargain option on FanDuel by a little bit. But it's going to be an interesting one. Probably favors bats. I think the Vegas board definitely seems that way as we look at it. Just 6 games on both sites. I think both DraftKings and FanDuel kind of realized that people's attention is waning with baseball, so they didn't go for the 6:40 start times. I was kind of worried that they were going to do that and add some extra games into this thing. But a nice, comfy 6-gamer to talk about. Royals at the Yankees, good series in the Bronx, 3.75 implied total for the Royals going up against Carlos Rodon. And then it's Brady Singer on the mound for the Royals. He's been pitching well, mostly, throughout the season. Seems like a spot where he could succeed against the Yankees. He's had a couple of good ones in a row after a bit of a meltdown against Philly. But he's always going to be a little bit gettable, and that is a good enough Yankees lineup. Word just came out that Jason Dominguez has a locker at Yankee Stadium now. That was per Underdog's reporting. Not sure where they got that quote from, but that could definitely be interesting. I haven't seen an official call-up, but if he's in the lineup, obviously that's a big get. So keep an eye out on the Yankees when that confirmed lineup comes down. We'll give it a look. We'll talk about it. Either way, though, 4.85 implied total for the Yanks at home. I think we can consider that spot. The Mets on the board going up against Chris Bassett, a solid 4.90 implied total for New York. And then on the other side, it's Tyler McGill going for New York and pushing a 4.20 implied total toward the relatively decent, relatively low strikeout, but just kind of middle of the road as far as the results go. Blue Jays don't love the spot for McGill, but I think in this kind of a pitching mix, he's certainly on the board and one of the lower overall implied totals among the good teams. Next one up, pretty offensive-oriented game. Baltimore at Boston. Fenway Park's going to help that one out. It's Cade Povich going for the Orioles. A talented young lefty, and lefties have been good against the Red Sox this season. He had a really good start, but it was against the White Sox in his most recent outing. Had been having a little bit of trouble finding his footing in the show. So we'll consider that option, but I think I lean bats even with the lefty on the mound there. Red Sox drawing nearly a 5-run total. Definitely seems like Vegas likes the bat situation in that one. And then we can definitely see success with Bayo against the Orioles, but there's drawn a 4.61 against. Looks like a bit of a both-sided situation. He's more gettable than he seems. Can be at times good for limiting power, but that hasn't really been an attribute this season. Seems like a spot where both sides of this one, we're just looking at some bats. Guardians against the White Sox, a very big 5.44 implied total for Cleveland. They're going up against, what is this one? Jared Schuster. He's going to open, probably go 2, 2 and a third, something along those lines, and then hand off. I'm not sure if there's a set bulk reliever. Let me actually look that up. Schuster is going to hand off to Nick Nastrini, which doesn't improve things any. That's essentially the same. So the Guardians look really juicy in that spot, 5.44 implied total there. And then the White Sox are going up against Joey Cantillo, who has had a bit of a home run issue in his mixed outings in the show this season. He's given 2 home runs 3 different times in 4 starts and 5 total outings. So not great. Also just hasn't really pitched deep, but hasn't exactly found success. In the minors, that was kind of an issue in a few stops in the minors for him as well. So it seems like a relatively targetable pitcher. The White Sox are showing some absurd power numbers, but I never really like stacking them even on a day like this. Like Lubob is over 20 in the home run model. A couple other guys above the magic number in the heart of the lineup, like Andrew Vaughn. But just a challenging spot with that White Sox inability to stack up runs, to sequence, to create runs. 3.7 implied total, 3.68 implied total for them. Maybe some one-offs. If the White Sox are ever going to succeed, maybe this is one of the days that they do. But how many times has that actually happened this season? 20, 25? And those are games that they've won. That's not games they were successful for DFS. That's just games where they happen to outscore their opponent by a couple of runs. But really deceptive and weak-looking spot, I think. Angels and the Twins, a 3.47 implied total for Los Angeles. They're going up against Festa, who has been up and down in the show, but definitely has very good strikeout stuff. Has not been great at pitching deep into games and has given up earned runs throughout, but hasn't been bad in his last handful of starts. He's getting a lot of attention, in season long. He's making 2 starts this week and in good spots, starting with this one against the Angels. I think he's very playable, but he's probably going to be popular because he's getting talked about and he's affordable. 3.47 implied total for Los Angeles. We might consider some bats from that team. They've got some frisky bats. On the other side, the Twins look pretty stackable. 4.62 implied total going up against Reed Detmers. Detmers had a good one in his last outing against the Dodgers. Struck out 10, just 2 earned runs over 6. Definitely a high-end pitcher who has succeeded in the show before. We'll give him some consideration, but obviously the Twins bats are going to be on the board too. And then the slate ends with Walker Buehler going for the Dodgers against the Cubs. Could find some strikeout upside. Managed to get through 5 in the last outing. Struck out 6. Not a terrible start against the Angels. We'll see what he's got tonight, but he doesn't really have much juice beyond the 5 innings. That's going to be the ongoing concern with Buehler right now. So we'll see what we get, whether he fits in to be playable. And then the Dodgers just were really appealing at a 5.86 implied total to lead the entire slate, going up against Kyle Hendricks, who's showing a ton of power. It is also apparently warm and very good hitting environment out in Los Angeles this week. Per Roth, still steamy out west. Ooh. Temperatures around 90 degrees and winds blowing out at 10 miles an hour. That's per Mr. Roth. That was the only note he had on weather. I'm going to just go along with him and say that everything else is fine, not having checked the weather forecast. Close this. Keep that open. Lone Wolf's here. What's going on, Lone Wolf? Good to see you, buddy. Handful of people hanging out. I get it. That kind of time of year in mid-September. DFS baseball, only for the grinders, really. Oh, no, we're starting this out. Hang on one second. I gotta just respond to this. We're in the second round of that World Series for our Dynasty League that I mentioned, and we go head-to-head and we pick the categories as just like a side thing. So we can like draft categories, and he's finally just getting back to me ahead of the thing here. He's going steals. Go with home runs, but I think his team hits a lot. I'm playing the guy who's in first place by a mile, and it's not going to be good for my team, but let's see what we can do here. Bear with me one second. Talk amongst yourselves. Is he bad at anything? He's not. I'll go with strikeouts. Whip. He's got second best whip. I'll go with strikeouts. K's. All right. That'll be an ongoing theme throughout the show for while we pick another couple things. Clintwood, good to see you too, buddy. How'd your football Sunday go? How'd your weekend go? How'd yours go, Lone Wolf? Andy's here. How'd you do in football? Hopefully we found some success. I'm looking for that person who hit that big Baker lineup over the weekend. I had him in. It turned out to be not enough shares. By the end, I was like, oh, man. It was one of those ones where it was like, I just felt like at the end of the day, like, if I had hand-built one more lineup, because I always hand-build a handful of lineups, then run optimizers and sims and everything and grab the rest of it from that. And it was just like, Baker hit, Evans hit, Rashid Shaheed, who I love in season long and have on basically every team, scored a touchdown, and I could have grabbed, like, it was just one of those ones where, like Kenny Walker, I had in so many lineups, but not enough of him with Baker. And it was just like, it felt like it was right there to grab it, killed me. But it was a good Sunday. I can't complain about the Sunday. Dumbass DK Metcalf hold on for the Walker 2 TDs, says Mamba, yeah. Clintwood doubled up, nice. Mama saying, please pray for my sanity. Missed $1 million parlay that's what that cost you $1 million parlay? Jesus. That sucks. I'd be hunting DK Metcalf for an apology on that one. Anyway, let's dive into this thing. It is going to be an interesting slate to go through, and I do again want to kind of make good time because I'm definitely going to knock out a football show 6 or 6:30 for this Monday night game. So Carlos Rodon, top of the board, just facing a low strikeout, pretty good Kansas City team. I don't love the spot, but he's appreciably the top guy on this slate, the most talented overall pitcher, the most accomplished overall pitcher. Apologies to Chris Bassett on that board, and really nobody else. So Rodon, easy to reach at those prices. It's just he doesn't have the best matchup, and he's a somewhat gettable pitcher. He's been pitching well overall, but it's not been the old former elite version of Carlos Rodon that from a couple years ago. Yanks don't typically end up with the free agents that they sign. They end up with a diminished version of whoever they bring in. Just how it tends to go. But definitely the top option on the slate. Chris Bassett going up against the Mets. The Mets, pretty good lineup, kind of rolling along. Hit a lot of home runs. There's a lot of quality up and down that lineup, and we know that Chris Bassett can be a roller coaster at times. He can also give you a lot of very good, clean innings with a medium strikeout potential. So, again, for him, it's also not a great matchup, and it's going to be the same thing for Reed Detmers going down the board. This is why Vegas supports more idea of offense. Really, only the White Sox and maybe the Angels are bad teams on this slate. Everybody else is at least pretty good to very good. So, interesting slate there. Anywhere you go, you're going to be challenged by the opposing team, so you might as well go to some of the best projections, some of the best pitchers up at the top of the slate. Reed Detmers definitely has some strikeout abilities, some strikeout upside against that Twins team, but again, they're very good. The price is definitely right at $77 apiece for Reed Detmers across sites, though. McGill has some ability, but Toronto's pretty low strikeout, decent squad, 78, 79. That said, down lineup now, there are some Ks for McGill to go find, so he'll be an interesting consideration at, again, very fair prices. Singer, very challenged by the Yanks, but probably will go under-owned for what his talent and what his output this year would dictate that he probably should be against a Yankees team that definitely can feed you strikeouts on the wrong day. They're just, leaving runner after runner on base, and they don't come through with the big knock like they need to with the way that offense is structured. So it's not a complete fade with Singer, and it's probably a spot where if you press up a little bit beyond the public ownership, you could get rewarded for that. 84, 83 is not a bad price to find him. It's just a lot of danger with Yankees lineup, Yankee Stadium of it all. Festa, another kid with a lot of talent for strikeouts. He's been up and down as far as runs allowed, but has an opportunity to definitely succeed against a medium kind of Angels lineup with a lot of obvious flaws. 85, 86, I do think he's going to be one of the more popular pitchers on the slate, but you can easily go there. Cantillo, we'll give him a look because he's facing the White Sox. Medium projection, 69, 62 is going to put him in consideration. But he's been a target for home run power, and the White Sox or the Pale Hose are showing a lot of power against. Povich just maybe benefits a little bit, one on being a pretty talented young lefty, and then two on the Red Sox struggles against lefties. But I tend to think that's overblown, especially in Fenway Park, especially in this situation. I don't love the spot for Povich, but he's fairly priced, so we'll talk about him. Buehler, I just question what the innings depth looks like, but at 72, 7,000, it's basically priced in. Probably a better buy on DraftKings where the win matters more, and you don't really care about the sixth inning bump. I think there's upside for Buehler there. 7,200, I don't know that we're getting that 6th inning. So that's the question mark on FanDuel, but it's not an unfair price. Bayo against Baltimore, just going to be challenged ballpark and opposing lineup. He's fairly good, but not great and definitely targetable with some Orioles bats in that park. Hendo against the Dodgers is a big no. Schuster is not going to pitch enough innings to pay off either of those prices. Mamba saying, can we skip Wednesday MLB show for an NFL show? We're going to be doing NFL shows during the week. So it's not going to be instead of MLB shows. It's going to be in addition to. So it should be fun. Would have been a runaway win, but I played the Raiders defense, says Mamba. Raiders D, huh? Yeah, I didn't really even look at what a lot of my defensive distribution. Who went off? Who was the defense that went off? I know I saw one of them. Was it the Falcons? Why do I want to say the Falcons? I don't know. Whoever the hell it was. I picked saves. All right, so I put in 3 relievers this week, so that's interesting. I'll go. We're back to this standings back and forth. Let's see. Who does he have in his lineup? Oh, he got Kyle Tucker back. That sucks for me. Forgot he had Tucker too. Dude just drafted in our minor league system. He just drafted so well like 5 years ago and is now reaping the rewards of it. He's got Tucker. He's got Tatis Jr. He's got Ellie and O'Neal Cruz. A couple other guys. That's why he went stolen bases first. I probably shouldn't go home runs there. All right. I'll go whip. We're a lot more even, I think, offensively. So yeah, Mamba, Rodon up top as far as the overall pitching, but as you can see here, it's against a Royals team that has a lot of their best hitters are very low strikeout, and then it's pumped up a little bit. It's not in the low teens anymore because you've got like Darren Blanco at the bottom of this projected lineup, 24.8%, Julie Gurriel at 27.3, in a very small sample, but we know that if he finds his ability at the plate, he is a very low strikeout hitter, historically. Paul DeYoung at 32%, obviously, is going to goose that overall. But Bobby Witt's low strikeout, Sal's manageable strikeout, Hunter Renfroe, Freddie Fermin are both low strikeout, Michael Garcia's low strikeout. Depending on who else, what gets into the confirmed, I'll keep an eye out. Let me see if we got the confirmed, actually. Just not a great team to target. Dominguez coming up officially. About time. I told you guys it would be about a week, though. What was it? It's 9 days? 8 days? Said it was going to be about a week. So, Rodon for the season, 26.7% strikeout rate. Very good. One of the highest marks on this slate. 4.19 ERA, a 4.16 xFIP. Love to see that down below 4, but it's not a terrible season. What's been shaky has been the premium contact. The power allowed, 4+% home runs is not good. We're over the threshold there. We're over the threshold there and there. Against a team that does have power in the lineup and they're going to be hitting in Yankee Stadium, there's some downside to it, right? So those are the concerns. The low strikeout nature of the Royals' best hitters and just the general up and down nature of this pitcher as far as allowing power. The Royals, this version of the lineup can be decent at sequencing. They don't draw a ton of walks. Everybody in the single-digit walks, and even their best hitters are not exactly great for drawing walks. You have a lot of BABIP-based on-base percentage or some small sample like Julie Gurriel getting on at 364 over just 11 plate appearances. We don't know exactly what form he's going to be in. It's been a minute since we've seen him be very good, but he was once upon a time incredibly good at the plate. He's just old now. So I think he'll be a little bit challenged for sequencing. Like you've got a good fit in the leadoff spot finally with Tommy Pham up there getting on at a 323 clip. And if he's focused on getting on base, he can push that up a little bit higher with his skill set. He hasn't been great this season, but he's got a lot of individual counting stat upside. And he's got a lot of correlated scoring upside with these guys. So this team can scratch out runs. They can sequence. They can create runs. And they also do have power. So there's threat to Rodon, but I think he is believably the top of the board by just a marginal difference in projection, though. I mean, it's not exactly a gulf between him and Chris Bassett. A little bit of a gap between these guys, but that amounts to one strikeout that Reed Detmers could easily go find. So it's not like he's off hiding as the best pitcher on the slate. Brady Singer, 83, 84, definitely playable. A very solid year, 3.35 ERA, a 3.58 xFIP per Singer, 22.6% strikeouts and 6.5% walks on the season. He's had his swings and misses again. 3 starts ago against Philly. 5 innings, he gave up 11 hits, 5 earned runs, 5 strikeouts, and no walks. Gave up a home run. That's not a good outing. 2 starts before that, he gave up 6 earned to the Twins, 4 earned the start before that to the Red Sox. But in between, good one against Cincinnati at Cincinnati. That's a challenging park to pitch in. Good one against Houston at Houston. He gave up 2 earned but struck out 6 Astros, which is an accomplishment. Struck out just 3 against the Guardians. Gave up 2 earned on 5 hits. I think there's more strikeout upside in this Yankees lineup for sure. We'll see what the actual version of the lineup looks like now that they've announced that Dominguez is coming up. We'll probably get it momentarily. Not out yet. Oh, we do have the Blue Jays, though. Oh, I'm sorry, it's the Royals. I have the Blue Jays in already. That's the next game. Blue team. So Singer, I do think, is playable here. This version of the Yankees lineup is at a 21.2% strikeout rate for the season. That's up a little bit by like Verdugo's low strikeout, but he's awful. He's probably not going to be in the lineup in favor of Dominguez. Anthony Rizzo's low strikeout has been decent since coming back to the lineup. Everybody else, though, and all of their best hitters, outside of Juan Soto, obviously, are at least gettable for Ks. There's clearly ridiculous elite power with some of these hitters. There's some threatening lefties throughout this lineup now. So it's not going to be a safe day for Singer, but it's not really a safe day for anybody on the mound. If you're taking Royals bets, targeting Carlos Rodon, they'll probably come up a little bit lower on than they otherwise could be. Rodon was really good his last time out. 6 innings against the Rangers at Texas. He struck out 11, just 1 earned run. He gave up a homer, but it was a solo shot. No problem with that one. But the outing before that at the Nationals, gave up 5 earned, struck out 8. Good one against Colorado, the outing before that, but everybody can beat Colorado. Bad one against Detroit, give up 4 and just 3 1/3. 5 strikeouts, but mixed results throughout the season. And again, vulnerable to power. So Tommy Pham's interesting, 37-28 for him, 8 home runs, 6 steals, and again, capable of filling categories, capable of getting on base and setting the table for these hitters. 101 WRC+. He hasn't been great this season, but he spent a lot of time with the White Sox. Much better opportunity to contribute at the top of this lineup. Bobby Witt, 66-43, perfectly playable, 30 home runs, 28 steals, potentially primed for a big day in Yankee Stadium. Sal Perez, 46-31, not unfairly priced, especially with the quality of contact that Rodon's allowing. All 3 of these guys make a ton of good contact up at the top of the lineup. So definitely I would say 2 of those righties, and these are my favorite 2, but you can work DeYoung into that. 3,600 at third base is not unfair. 2,800 with shortstop eligibility in addition, not unfair on FanDuel. He's hit 24 home runs, 210 ISO on the season. Just the ability to drive the ball against a pitcher who is allowing people to drive the ball, it's in play. DeYoung is the highest strikeout player in that lineup by a mile, and he could be a victim of strikeouts against Rodon a few times. But I think he's in the mix. I prefer Witt and Perez, but you can save some money by going to DeYoung. Hunter Renfroe's also in that mix. He hasn't really made great contact this year. 39.4% hard hits, just 5.8% barrels is meh. 12 home runs at 158 ISO. You can mix and match your way to some shares if you're building with a lot of Royals, but if you're just building one, he's probably not a top priority. He is low strikeout, so you can give him that much. He draws a few walks, so he can get involved a little. That's what keeps him at a 98 WRC+, but that does have him a couple points below average. Freddie Fetterman does get on base and hit for average, 290, 339, 396, a 104 WRC+. Otherwise, not an ideal option, but he's playable. He fits in at catcher with Sal sliding over to first base on both sites. So he's a playable option, not a high-end option. Gurriel for a cheap price at first base is not a bad option if you're putting Sal at the catcher spot. A player that, once upon a time, again, was a very, very high-end talent. We looked at it the other day and just fell off with age. He didn't get here until he was in his early 30s. Spent a few years of all-star or superstar caliber output and then kind of dipped. Lost his job and just reclaimed a position with this needy Royals organization. But if he's putting the ball in play, as long as he's in the lineup at those prices, Very capable of drawing walks, very capable of putting the ball in play. We'll see what power output and everything looks like, but he's in the mix for shares. Michael Garcia, 73 WRC plus, not great, but can definitely steal a base. Can drive the ball, 43.2% hard hits, 15.7% strikeout rate. The numbers should be better than what we've gotten out of Garcia this season. Has scored 83 runs. Denron Blanco seems like he's always contributing when he's in a lineup. 26 stolen bases on the season, just a 98 WRC plus. That's only over 129 plate appearances. 4 home runs, 26 steals, and that many plate opportunities. 315 on base. He's interesting for 32.25. Still no Yankees lineup. I assume Dominguez is going to be in it. Let's just do that. So it's probably going to be in place of Verdugo, but they're probably not going to hit him 9, would they? Maybe they would. I'm just going to plug them in where they've got Verdugo right now. Actually, would they want to go lefty-lefty there? Actually, that's 3 lefties in a row. There's no way Boone does that. Yeah, we'll just leave him in the 9 spot for the moment. Good news is he's on both slates, and he's only 3,600, 2,500. Oh, he's a switch hitter. That's right. So we can move him up. Let me make sure of that. Yeah, he is a switch hitter. All right. I'm going to move him up a spot. It seems like that doesn't matter, but it matters a little bit. And with as good as he is, there's every chance in the world that he, they might move Wellesley down and let the kid have a shot. Like, move Stanton into that spot or Jazzy into that spot and move him up to Dominguez up into, like, one of these roles with everybody else up there sliding up, and then Wells down in, like, one of these spots. But I think the switch hitter kind of works in between those two if that's what they want to do. Then you're doubling up righties with Volpe and Glaber going back around, but doesn't really matter. It's probably where he lands. Underappreciated right now by the home run model. It's probably just because there's no big projection on him on Steamer in those numbers. I'll get in there and I'll update it after the show because it probably should use a little bit of a tweak. That's a pretty low mark for home runs. Singer hasn't been terrible for giving up home runs, though. Actually, yeah, that might be the impact. Singer's a low launch angle pitcher, and 2.41. Oh, interesting. All right, so LeMahieu's not in this lineup. John Birdie's also back for the Yanks. LeMahieu goes to the IL. I don't think Birdie slides into the lineup for anybody. If it's for anybody, it might be for Glaber at the top of the lineup, and they work him in there. But I'm not going to worry about that for now. Assuming it's Glaber up top, 42.29 continues to be an effective enough price. He's getting on at a 325 clip. He's just below average for run creation. He's been pretty bad throughout the season, but there's a lot of at least okay. Like his pretty bad has still been all right. He's not tragically below average for run creation. He's just not hitting the ball hard enough. Pretty mediocre in this department, down from last year. It's resulted in 12 home runs and a very sad little ISO there. Otherwise, not striking out egregiously bad, drawing his walks. So he's playable. He's cheap. You can go there. Hitting ahead of Soto and Judge does wonders for somebody's upside. 65, 69 for those two. They're absolute superstars. You put them in any lineup you can. 38 and 51 home runs apiece. 291, 375 ISO. Judge has been in a little bit of a dip recently. We haven't seen a home run in a minute. 51, I think he's been stuck there for a few days. But it's Aaron Judge. You just go there. 13.09 in the home run model. Soto at 10. Austin Wells has been really good for this team. 12 home runs and 353 plate appearances for the young catcher. 176 ISO, 118 WRC+. Anywhere in the lineup, you need the catcher, perfectly fine to go to. 2,900, you pretend he's Anthony Rizzo, pretends he's your first baseman. That said, Rizzo is cheaper at 27 and 35 across sites. And 8 home runs, Low strikeout, put the ball in play. A former all-star, very good, 30 home runs a year kind of an option. I don't think he's completely dead. He's just been hurt. He's been banged up for the better part of more than a year now. But I think we can still go there considering how cheap he is and how much bat on ball you get. Jason Dominguez, in 33 plate appearances before blowing out his elbow last year, did hit 4 home runs. Roared onto the scene, 419 ISO in that tiny sample in the show. Has been destroying minor league pitching for all of last year, and what he's had as an opportunity this year is just an absolute star in the making as long as he can stay healthy out there. Still only 21 years old, getting here and hopefully never relinquishes the job. There's no reason in the world to have Alex Verdugo ever out there again. Anthony Volpe, 41, 3,000, mix and match caliber shortstop, 252, 300, 389 points below average for run creation, 11 homers, 26 steals. He's not expensive anymore, which is good, but he's a very infrequent contributor. He's very mediocre. Four corners game for sure, considering the Yankee Stadium of it and everything, and the good lineups. I'll slightly give it to Carlos Rodon just because he is the top-ranked pitcher. So Rodon, Yankees bats, Singer, Royals bats. And you could easily put you can put that in any order, honestly. Everything's playable in this game. That Yankees lineup, of course, just dropped. Like, literally as I went there. All right, so Dominguez moves up further than I thought. No Stanton. Fucking... Such a bad manager. All right, so Judge's DHing. Dominguez is playing center field and hitting 6th. It's Gleyber, Soto, Judge, Wells, Jazz, Dominguez, Rizzo, Cabrera in at short, and Verdugo in left. So, after calling up Jason Dominguez, they decided to punt 2 spots in the lineup anyway by continuing to play Verdugo and putting in Ozzy Cabrera instead of Volpe. I mean, even Birdie, if you're going to activate him, Birdie's better than Oswaldo Cabrera, and he can play short. The idea that Verdugo's in the lineup today, though, is just stupid. I get that they wanted to give Judge a day off from playing center field, but whatever. Anyway, stupid Yankees lineup, but Dominguez gets a great spot in the lineup. He moves up and, again, is hitting 6th, which will make him look even better. Tyler McGill, 7,900, 7,800, 25.7% Ks on the year in his 11 starts, is 56 and a third. Solid mark by Stuff Plus. Hasn't really been bad in terms of the home runs allowed. It's a medium kind of a launch angle. It's not exactly elite keeping the ball down, and there is hard hit. Some exit velo, some barrels in there. He's not unhittable in terms of power. He's pushing like medium numbers to the Blue Jays, toward the guys you would expect. But he is a decent strikeout pitcher with the potential for a little bit more for Ks, I think. 12.6% swinging strike rate. He's walking a high amount at 9.6%. The whip is unsustainably high. The xFIP is better than the ERA, but it's still high, still above 4. So there's a lot of work to do here. It is a low strikeout Blue Jays team where all of their best hitters outside of Dalton Varsho are low strikeout bats. So I don't love the spot for McGill, but I do think he could find some success along the way. He went 5 and a third 2 starts ago against the White Sox, struck out 6, gave up 1 earned run. Last time out, just 4 innings against Boston, 3 earned, faced 17 hitters, struck out 3, walked 1. Back in July 31st, just 2 innings against the Twins. Not sure what happened there. Oh, that was in relief. That's right. 6 innings before that against Atlanta on the 27th. He gave up 4 earned runs, struck out 4. A couple of bad ones in a row from the end of June, and then had a gap, and then came back after about a month and wasn't great out of the gate there. I don't love the option. It's just for where he's priced. If he does find his strikeout upside today, it's not bad on a relatively short pitching slate. He's one of the more playable options. This version of the Blue Jays lineup is nearly a 1 in 5 strikeout, given that you've got Addison Barger and Leo Jimenez pushing it up in medium samples so far. Small sample out of Will Wagner. He's low strikeout. There's maybe 3-4 targetable hitters in there, and then if he happens to get Springer or Vladdy once or twice, we're probably okay for our 5-6 strikeouts that we need for this salary. On the other side, Bassett 84-86 has a 22.7% strikeout rate, 4.30 ERA with a 4.15 xFIP, medium walk rate, decent depth on average, 157 innings and 28 starts. Last time out, 5 1/3, he gave up 4 runs, 3 earned, struck out 7, 2 home runs allowed is problematic, 10 hits allowed is problematic. That's against Philly. He was much better than that at Fenway Park, went 6 2/3, 9 strikeouts, and earned run on 5 hits. Very good start there. And that's demonstrative of Chris Bassett's ability to beat a good team and to pitch into the 7th inning. You get that kind of a day, you are often running at 8,400, 8,600 across sites. I think Chris Bassett is believably the number 2 on this slate, but he's not safe. Nobody on this slate's going to be safe. Bassett's been good at limiting premium contact, limiting power despite being a medium fly ball pitcher. If he makes mistakes against this team, the ball's definitely going to travel, but by and large this season, he hasn't been bad in the home run department. Did allow 2 last game. Did allow 2 in a game back on the 11th of August against Oakland. Did allow 2 in a game against Detroit. Has been one. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Over his last 10 starts, there have been 2 games with no home runs allowed, and every other game he's allowed at least 1, and 3 of those games he's allowed 2. So he has taken a little bit of a dip in the power allowed department, but it hasn't really killed him. Oddly, one of those 0 home run games was the 4-run game against the Angels a couple starts back. One of the 2-run games was a 7-run game against the Athletics. That's a meltdown, and that's kind of a good example of the downside of Chris Bassett, which we've all, I think, dealt with before in our lineups. That gives some credence to rostering some Mets. If you're building out a bunch of lineups, I have no issues with including some Mets, and you can even get aggressive. They might end up a little bit under-owned, considering people are probably going to go to Chris Bassett a little bit on this slate. Lindor off the top, 56-38 across sites, has 100 runs scored on the board, 30 home runs, 26 stolen bases, a 222 ISO, a 135 WRC+. Fantastic season at the end of the year here out of Lindor. Everything across the board here has been either improved or right in line with where it's supposed to be this season. He's just tremendous, and he's probably a little bit cheap at 56. That's a high price, but relative to the entire slate, it's not all that bad, and for the talent, for the output we've gotten from him this year and throughout his career, it's not a bad price. Nimmo at 45.32, kind of appropriately priced for the output we've gotten from him this season. A 169 ISO is lower than we expected, 18 home runs, 12 steals. It's just been kind of mediocre, but is still getting on at a 340 clip. Is still hitting the ball hard, 47.1% hard hits. The barrel rate's not that far off the mark, so definitely capable of delivering against a mediocre righty. I can definitely include Brandon Nimmo in a bunch of Met stacks. Martin Fantos is still only 4,600. I think they're just going to keep him under 5,000 all year. At this point, I don't understand why. I haven't understood why. And I just don't see it increasing. 15.4% barrels, 46.5% hard hits, 24 home runs, slashing 284, 345, 53, and 376 plate appearances, a 269 ISO, creating runs, a team leading 49% better than average. What does the guy have to do to get priced at 5,000? I don't understand. Pete Alonso, 4,900, definitely playable, 12.5% barrels, 45.3% hard hits. He's mashed his way up to 31 home runs, another very successful power season. 227 ISO, 123 WRC+. Has his flaws in the average, the on-base department, could be a better player overall and really achieve like true superstar status. Right now he's just like a star caliber power hitter. But Pete Alonso is a very, very good baseball player, one of the best options on this team, and he's underpriced for his talent. Winker, 35, 3,000, kind of underpriced for a guy creating runs 23% better than average, getting involved at a 363 on base kind of a pace, driving the ball effectively, 14 home runs, stealing bases, 14 steals, 262, 363, 422. Jesse Winker's just been good this season. He's very, very affordable. Draws a lot of walks, medium strikeout rate. Nothing wrong with that option. 45, 3,000 for JD Martinez when you can play him at first base on DraftKings. If you wanted to skip Pete Alonso, get $400 cheaper. There's nothing wrong with that pivot. 15.1% barrels, 45.7% hard hits. 16 homers, a 188 ISO is maybe a little off the expected pace and a little off what the output ought to be, over 444 opportunities with that kind of contact. But I'm just buying in on the contact. And JD Martinez has always made elite level contact. So even with a dip in hard hit rate, a little bit of a dip in barrel rate year over year, we're at least back to those numbers or exceeding those numbers from 2 years ago. And in a vacuum, these are still excellent hard hit numbers. So you just pay the low salary for that contact and rely on the fact that eventually things normalize and some of those balls that didn't get out will get out. Jose Iglesias, mix and match quality. He's had a very good 210 plate appearances. DJ Stewart, a lefty who can drive the ball a little bit, but Sub Mendoza, 325 on base is not bad. It's supporting the just 11 points below average run creation mark. Without that on base, he'd be tragically worse. He's drawing a 16.2% walk right now. That's just kind of saving him. Hasn't been great, but definitely can make decent contact from the left side against a okay righty. And then Frankie Alvarez hasn't been great this season, just 6 home runs in 287 opportunities, and everything else cratered around it. 90 WRC plus, a mix and match quality catcher right now with a lot more talent than the average catcher. George Springer, top of the board on the Blue Jays side, 43, 28, 19 homers, 14 steals. The numbers have improved. They're not going to end up being good, but he is still low strikeout, fairly high walk rate, leadoff, and gets him a lot of opportunities. Going up against Tyler McGill, an average-ish kind of a pitcher. Could definitely have a day in this spot. 7.37 in the home run model, put bat on ball, or set the table for Vladdy, for Spencer Horwitz. Not a big fan of Dalton Varsho, as you guys know, but 4,200 with 18 homers, a 198 ISO. It at least puts you on the board. He's gotten those power marks without really driving the ball effectively. 33.2% hard hits, just a 6% barrel rate. Dead on league average for run creation, one of the higher strikeout rates on that team. More of a target for K's from McGill, but a lefty up near the top of the lineup. He's going to be playable in stacks of Blue Jays. Vladdy for 54.35, fairly priced. Slashing 324, 395, 554 with a 230 ISO, 166 WRC plus, and 28 homers. Very low strikeout, very high walk. Just elite at basically everything. Sorry, I was just throwing another category into the mix there. Spencer Horwitz, 39, 3,000. First baseman on DraftKings. That's not great because it's a positional conflict with Vladdy. Kind of unfair that they did that. Still second base eligible on FanDuel, and Vladdy still got his third base eligibility, being able to move those guys around positions. I love that aspect of it. Very fairly priced for a guy who gets on at a 360 clip, creating runs 35% better than average. He's even driving the ball more than expected. Up to a 9.6% barrel rate. Hit a couple home runs recently to get up to 12 homers, a 193 ISO. Spencer Horwitz is really good. Will Wagner, 31-27, playable. Had a good 75 plate appearances so far, 138 WRC plus in the small sample, and has been driving the ball effectively while being low strikeout and low walk. So this is a lot of well-struck balls in play for Wagner so far. Totally played 31-20 at second base. First base, 2,700. Not bad at all. Alejandro Kirk is a mix-and-match catcher. Addison Barger has been just okay. He's shown a little bit of power, 7 home runs and a 192 ISO, but hovering around Mendoza, 239 on base is not ideal, a 75 WRC+. Leo Jimenez has been above-average run creator despite not really hitting for average. He's getting on base at an okay clip, but striking out quite a bit. 4 home runs in 165 opportunities. And then Nathan Lukes has the ability to drive the ball from the left side, 2,500, 2,400 in the outfield. Just another outfielder from the bottom of the lineup, but he is playable down there. It is a 9-man version of the Blue Jays lineup. I think they're maybe a little bit more interesting than they might be getting credit for. I still like George Springer. I really like Vladdy. I really like Spencer Horwitz. And then I think you got 1, 2, 3, 4 playable options down the lineup, plus Dalton Varsho up top. It's not a bad Blue Jays stack. Shit, I guess we got to put Bassett up there, don't we? Just like with Rodon, it is kind of a four-corner game again, but I'll give it to Bassett a little bit of an edge just because he's the second highest projected pitcher and he's fairly priced. But right behind him, I would go Mets bats. Or, do we go Mets bats or Blue Jays bats? Yeah, Mets bats. Vegas likes that too. And then Blue Jays bats following that with McGill trailing. 7,900, 7,800, though, is not unfair for Tyler McGill in terms of price. Big time upside for bats in this one. Kate Povich, again, is a talented young lefty, but has had his issues in the show so far with a 5.76 ERA, a 5.35 xFIP, 17.3% Ks against 9.6% walks. Isn't going to get it done. Lefties have found success against the Red Sox, and Povich was very, very good against the White Sox in his most recent outing. That was on the 3rd. 7 1/3 in that one, struck out 10. 5 hits, but 7 1/3 shutout innings. Very, very good. Against the Dodgers, the outing before that, though, gave up 5 earned runs on 10 hits in just 3 1/3, struck out just 3. Against the Astros, 5 earned in 5 innings, 8 hits, struck out just 3, gave up 2 home runs. 6 1/3 against these Red Sox, though, back on August 17th at home in Baltimore. 2 earned runs, 6 strikeouts, 6 hits, no home run allowed. It's not a bad start. Puts him on the board, makes it believable that he could succeed here. 68-74, the ballpark's going to work against him for sure. Red Sox stacking up a bunch of righties in the lineup. Jarren Duran, Rafi Devers off the top, and then everybody else right-handed. So those issues kind of go away. Let's see here. Lefties. All right. Red Sox lineup. So Duran has not been as good against lefties. 262, 325, 364, though. Still makes him playable. Still makes him effective-ish. 8 points below average for run creation, compared to the elite player that he's been throughout the season, is telling, though. 4 home runs, 8 stolen bases against same-handed pitching. The potentially more concerning one is honestly Rafi. Rafi Devers against lefties this year, 242, 304 is a very low on-base percentage for that player. 398, creating runs 9% worse than average, a 156 ISO, just 4 of his home runs in 204 plate appearances against the lefty. Been pretty weak. For his career, against same-handed pitching, he's a 266, 321, 422 hitter. Little bit better. A 156 ISO compared to a 270 against right-handed pitching. 98 WRC plus versus a 138 WRC plus. I continue to think that he's playable against lefties, but it has been bad this year. So a little bit of, obviously downside with those 2 hitters, but pushing them up into the top 2 spots and just throwing them in there, I really don't have issue with it. And if they go under-owned for DFS because there's a lefty on the mound, it just gives them upside. It's a lefty who is not proven yet. It's not a Hall of Fame lefty on the mound right now. So I think they've got at least a shot to succeed, given who those 2 hitters are. Overall for the season, 37 and 39% better than average for run creation. Again, both in the 90s, the low 90s against lefties. Rob Refsnyder's really succeeded against left-handed pitching this season. He's a different story altogether. Reffy has a 135 WRC plus, 281, 374, 479. He's hit 6 home runs against left-handed pitching in just 139 plate appearances. Then you get to Tyler O'Neill, who has a team-leading 198 WRC plus. He's been almost 100% better than average creating runs against lefties this year. He's hit 12 of his home runs. 12 of his 27 home runs have come against left-handed pitching, despite only facing them 142 times on the season. He has a 379 ISO in the split, slashing 310, 430, 690. Tyler O'Neill is absolutely elite against lefties. Romy Gonzalez, fairly priced in the middle of the lineup. He's got a 150 WRC plus over 108 plate appearances against lefties this year. 319, 389, 521. 4 home runs on the board, 6 stolen bases, a 202 ISO. Don't sleep on Romy Gonzalez for a fair price with second base eligibility, $3,000 on DraftKings. That's a nice fit in this lineup. If you can grab a second baseman from the Red Sox hitting in the heart of the lineup, that is not bad. And one who's succeeding against lefties, take a few pokes at the monster. On FanDuel, 2,600, 4-position eligibility. That's great. Most of his plate appearances have been against left-handed pitching. He's primarily been a platoon player. 174 for the season. All the home runs are against lefties. He stole 4 bases against righties so far. But most of his production has come on this side of split. So again, you're getting him in the right spot. Connor Wong, 37% better than average creating runs this season against lefties in 138 opportunities. 5 of his home runs have come on this side of the split, despite, again, a minimal amount of plate appearances. 114 WRC plus overall for the season. 13 home runs on the board in 426 chances. Been very, very good, an affordable catcher. Trevor Story back for the Red Sox now. 3,600, 2,700, a former superstar, former all-star, and then has been greatly diminished over time. For his career, let's give Trevor Story a little bit of credit real quick. 265, 332, 502, 7% better than average creating runs. A career 237 ISO. Yes, a lot of those years were in Colorado. Yes, he has not been the same guy since leaving Colorado. Did have a fairly successful first season with the Red Sox, over 396 plate appearances back in 2022, though. The slash line wasn't great at 238, 303, 434, was dead at league average for WRC plus, 100 WRC plus, but managed to hit 16 home runs in 396 chances, stole 13 bases, and had a 196 ISO. Was higher strikeout than he's ever been before in his career, and then has just been basically hurt since then. 168 plate appearances last year was fairly irrelevant, just 41 so far this year. Trevor Story's just 31 and change, not 32 yet. If he could stay on the field, I think he's got something more to give. Again, we've got a lot of Coors Field numbers in the track record, but I mean, for his career against lefties, Trevor Story, 63 home runs in 1,028 plate appearances, 298, 372, 599 with a 301 career ISO against lefties, 141 WRC plus career. That's ridiculous. So, Story at shortstop, not bad. Good positional fit for this team. No issues with playing him over Ceddanne Rafaela, who's just been contributing counting stats across the board throughout the season, but oddly has an 84 WRC plus, doesn't really get on base that frequently, and is wildly unreliable. I'll take Trevor Story 2 spots higher up in the lineup. Danny Jansen, mix and match quality catcher with a little bit of power, 8 home runs in 296 chances. Hasn't really been great this season. Hasn't really been making very good contact at all this season. And then again, Rafaela just kind of filling a lot of counting stats, but very irregular production from the bottom of the lineup. If you go to the Orioles side, they're going to be facing Brian Bayo. 142 innings, 22% strikeout rate this year, a 4.75 ERA, but a much nicer 3.80 xFIP. Keeping the ball on the ground effectively, 5.8 degree average launch angle. Means 3.09% home runs. Maybe a little bit of bad luck, a little bit of happenstance in there. That could easily be below 3 in the mid-2s. 41.4% hard hits, 88.6 miles an hour of exit velo. On that kind of a trajectory, we don't really care about. So it's keeping the barrel rate low. So he's difficult to hit home runs against. Anthony Santander, Gunnar Henderson, difficult to suppress in the home run model. But everybody else just, halfway to the magic number at best. Bayo walks a few too many hitters. Doesn't have the best CSW at 28.5 given the 11.9% swinging strike rate. That's where some of his issues come in. He's also got some BABIP against. A 138 whip has to be a fairly high BABIP against it, given the walk rate's not 12. 311 batting average on balls in play against. So a lot of those balls that are, while they're on a low trajectory, a lot of well-struck balls do get through the infield. Some line drives over the infielder's heads, and so on and so forth. Orioles could definitely sequence. They could definitely stack up some runs against. They've got some guys who are good at drawing walks. Everybody in the 8s and the 9s with a couple double-digit walk rates there. The on base is there's a couple low opportunity guys down there. 3 of the guys who have full samples. The on base 323. Decidedly average, not exceptional, but not bad either. They can sequence. A lot of power through the lineup. Gunnar Henderson up at the top. Excellent option at the shortstop position as a lefty coming in against Brian Bayo here. 64-44, he's hit 36 home runs. He's stolen 18 bases with 258 ISO, 157 WRC+. Drives the ball like crazy. Medium strikeout, relatively high walk. Excellent player. Sed Mullins at 46, 3,000 has stolen 26 bases and hit 15 home runs in 432 opportunities this year. His production hasn't been bad. He's 3% above average for run creation. He's got a 172 ISO. Kind of got the reputation of having, just gone bust and not being the player that he once was. And maybe he's not the guy he once was, but that's not a bad DFS season at worst. He's hitting second today against Brian Bayo. I can get on board with some cheap Cedric Mullins upside. Anthony Santander, 6,000, 4,100. Not at all cheap, but he's got 39 home runs and 271 ISO in his best season. 12.38 in the home run model today. Love the upside for Santander against basically anybody. If I'm building Oriole stacks, it's definitely in the lineup. And even with those 2 guys, with Gunnar and Santander being priced up, well, on DraftKings it's not. DraftKings, it's a challenge. No matter what you do. I guess if you go Eloy Jimenez in there, if you do that, you're at 5,100. So the Orioles on DraftKings, very expensive. On FanDuel, not so much. That 4-man off the top is 3,600. That's expensive, but it's doable. If you go to Jimenez, and let's say we skip O'Hearn, and we stick with Mullins. You drop down to Eloy Jimenez, you get it to 35 still. It's expensive, but it's more affordable, I think, here. These aren't back-breaking prices. Because, honestly, getting Mullins production for a little bit more isn't terrible, considering he's a multi-category contributor. O'Hearn's just been good. 13 home runs, a 162 ISO, 118 WRC+, constantly involved, very, very low strikeout, good walk rate, puts the ball in play with a lot of hard hit behind it when he's not walking. Like the option quite a bit at 3,000 and don't mind paying a couple hundred more for it. Adley's excellent. 57 is getting up there, though. As we looked at the other day, the production, it's good because he plays every single day, but 18 home runs and 567 plate appearances. It's good catcher production, but it's not crazy. It's not like he's got 30 home runs on the board. 145 ISO is actually not good. 106 WRC plus is good, 6 points above average, but again, not superstar good. Just makes him a really good catcher. So 57 does drive it up, but you have to play the position on DraftKings, so he earns it. 31 on FanDuel is like more appropriate for what the actual output is, where you don't have to play the position. Jimenez at 38-28, very affordable for his former talents. He is still crushing the ball when he makes contact with it at a 48.8% hard hit rate. Not really striking out, not really drawing that many walks, so you're just buying the contact, buying the frequency of opportunity, but a 103 ISO and just 6 home runs and 337 chances. Where have you gone, Eloy Jimenez? Colton Cowser, mix and match quality at worst. 20 home runs, 242, 323, 436. Not a great spot in the lineup, but crushes the ball when he makes contact from the left side. 194 ISO, 117 WRC+. Just difficult to homer against Brian Bayo. 5.81 in the home run mile. That's why I say today mix and match quality at best, because he is more of a home run oriented player. He's also fairly high strikeout at 30.1%. Kobe Mayo, mix and match, over 30 plate appearances. He hasn't been great, but he's a super high caliber prospect. And then Livan Soto getting a shot at the bottom of the lineup. We've got a little bit of history with him. 74 plate appearances for the career, 358, 397, 507 hitter, which is pretty good. 156 WRC plus, which is good. Rates out is not really one of their higher priority prospects, but it's a very deep organization as far as prospects go. None of the traditional scouting grades look all that impressive. Looking at the minor league numbers, a little bit of speed, low power output, has always hit for average and gotten on base. So just kind of a mix and match caliber. Maybe you can grab him and wrap him around for the speed, for the on-base ability, if you're getting desperate at the bottom of the Orioles lineup. Dead mid in price, but I mean, then you're skipping Gunnar for him. Doesn't really feel right. Or I guess on FanDuel, you're putting him in the util alongside Gunnar, but still, seems like a weird way to occupy a spot. 28 instead of Gunnar doesn't really play on DraftKings. Red Sox bats, Orioles bats, Bayo, Povich. Well, Povich Bayo. Gonna correct that. Povich Bayo. Probably don't need to get all that desperate and go to these pitchers, though. Guardians, White Sox, 431. Got both of these lineups in. If you weren't here at the beginning, probably 6:30 for the football show. I'll get it scheduled as soon as we're out of here. Lot to talk about for tonight's epic showdown between the Jets and the 49ers. Like, do we think Aaron Rodgers gets through the game? Do we think he's going to be any good anymore? Got Rodgers projected kind of low today. Don't love the spot. Think I'm a little bit lower than some others in the industry. I got to fix Jacob Maya. For some reason, he's Jacob Maya. All right, so Joey Cantillo, again, in 4 starts, 5 outings, has given up 6 home runs. 6 home runs to 83 hitters so far. Just 15 strikeouts. Pretty bad. 7.23% home run rate. He's given up a ton of hard hit, ton of exit velo, ton of barrel. It's only a medium trajectory. That's not a terrible launch angle. It's not like the ball's always in the air, but definitely is mistake prone and has been giving up plenty of home runs and plenty of downside. A 7.71 ERA, a 4.98 xFIP. This is going to be your real number, but that doesn't make him good. He's walked too many in the show so far, not really striking anybody out. Kind of problematic numbers throughout there. And then when we look down 9 starts in AAA this season, a 3.29 ERA, but a 4.51 xFIP, 29.8% strikeouts, but a 14.6% walk rate to go with that. Not a lot of success. Going back through other levels of the minors, had a big issue in AAA last year with the home run ball. 95 innings in AAA last year, had a 1.52 home run per 9. Did strike out 26.1%, but that was against a 12.9% walk rate. Had a 5.10 xFIP under his 4.64 ERA. Just doesn't look like a very good pitcher. That makes me really remiss to have to talk about the White Sox, but you can see all the power that's showing there. The issue is, as we've talked about all season long, and this is the confirmed version of the White Sox lineup now. Jacob Maya's numbers aren't going to come up because I haven't fixed that name issue. But this top 8 in this lineup, nobody above a 300 on base percentage. The average on base percentage for the top 8 hitters in today's White Sox lineup is 266. There's your problem. So while I believe fully that Luis Robert's got a great shot to hit a home run today, I believe a little bit less in Andrew Benintendi, a little bit more in Andrew Vaughn, and then Corey Lee is whatever. But one of these 4 guys, I think there's decent likelihood of a home run, or maybe it's Lenin Sosa, maybe it's Miguel Vargas from down bottom of the lineup. Somebody probably hits a home run. Maybe they hit 2 home runs against Joey Cantillo. Nobody's on base. Does it matter? Does it give the White Sox any kind of upside? I don't think so. Makes them really difficult to stack. Maybe you grab a one-off for a really cheap price with, grab a Lubov one-off, grab an Andrew Vaughn one-off. That's how I would approach this White Sox team, and Vegas agrees. Right? 3.68 implied runs. So yeah, you get your 3-4 runs on a 3-run home run from Lubov. Congratulations, you have not won your DFS slate with that. Maybe the White Sox win the game. Maybe Lubov is in a winning lineup on his own. But you're not getting a lot of correlated scoring out of this team 99 times out of 100. It's just not what they do. They're not good. They do have a little bit of power through that stretch, but even those home run totals in these many plate appearances, it's not great. What's that? That's 57 home runs in 1,720 plate appearances, which means they've hit 6 more home runs than Aaron Judge has in essentially 3 times as many plate appearances as a 4-man unit. So don't be misled into stacking White Sox. They will be, I can't imagine they're going to be crazy high owned. So there are angles that you could take or at least argue. But I think they defy that math because of how bad they are. This is not your average baseball team. This is a team that is distinctly bad, historically bad. They're going to end up losing the most games of all time. I think they're still on that pace. Only Corey Lee is drawing any kind of ownership whatsoever. Lubov in the mid-single digits, Corey Lee slightly above that. So they're fine to go to as far as getting to a low-owned team that is, of course, showing power upside. But again, I think you're better off with one-offs. And if you're on DraftKings, a 5-ish% owned Luis Robert as a one-off, that could work. He's 4,400, 32 on FanDuel. Corey Lee's popular because he's a $2,600 catcher, and he does have a little bit of power upside, so maybe you one-off some Corey Lee. And when I say popular for the White Sox, mid-single digits popularity, so not a problem. But I think a lot of people who do one-off a cheap catcher today will go directly to that Corey Lee play. Is what it is. They're a terrible, terrible baseball team. But Joey Cantillo, not a good pitcher. Wasn't a good pitcher in the minors outside of some strikeouts. Maybe find some Ks today, but I don't think you're paying off even 62, 69. And there's a lot of downside, even against the White Sox. It was difficult to wrangle that projection with his strikeout potential, but with all the walks, with all their downside, but with all the power showing. It was all over the place. Jared Schuster on the other side, just going to pitch 2 innings, less than 3, let's say. 15.8% strikeout rate, way too many walks, a 4.57 ERA, a 5.25 xFIP, pushing plenty of quality in the power department toward the Guardians lineup, which is a much better lineup than the White Sox. These guys are actually good at sequencing. By comparison, the 9-man average on base is 319. Let's do as an 8-man. We'll leave out the 267. just to be unfair. 326 if we leave that one out. That 267 from Bo Naylor is problematic because he's not really hitting any home runs. 11 on the season and 339 plate appearances, just okay. A 153 ISO, just okay. Not really driving the ball all that much from the catcher spot. So he really needs to get on base more, draw some walks to offset all the strikeouts that he contributes. Hasn't been a good year from Bo Naylor. Brian Rocchio's contributed a little bit, 8 home runs, 9 steals, but just a 302 on base, 83 WRC+. Just plays pretty slick defense. The top 7 hitters, though, at least effective. They range from effective to very, very good. Andres Gimenez is effective. 8 home runs, 27 steals. He can contribute to a DFS lineup. He can find correlated scoring. He's not expensive at second base, which is a key position to fill with an inexpensive bat. Not an ideal spot in the lineup to contribute and correlate with the guys up top, though. You'd rather have him ahead of the home run hitters than behind, or you'd rather have some good hitters behind him down lineup. He doesn't have either of those things, so he kind of falls by the wayside. His production's been down 14 points below average for run creation. But he can get involved. Jackenzie Noel, big Christmas, 9.89 in the home run model. He's hit 13 home runs, guys, in 158 plate appearances. Still extremely cheap. 18.3% barrels. 317 ISO, a 145 WRC+. I'm going to throw him into the very good category, at least for now. A lot of strikeouts, no walks to speak of, but man, he crushes the ball when he makes contact with it. Lane Thomas, a good player. 10 home runs, 32 steals, a 98 WRC+. This is going to be above average before the season's out, before the next 3 weeks are done. It's a mediocre season compared to last year, when he had 28 home runs and stole 20 bases and was very, very good throughout the season. But he's got a lot of skills, and he fits this lineup perfectly. 4,000, 3,000 is an effective price for him. Josh Naylor, very, very good. 29 home runs, a 222 ISO, great power bat up top. Affordable. 4,300 on DraftKings is nonsensical pricing. I guess if you're going to price Mark Vientos where you do, then putting Josh Naylor there, makes some sense. But Naylor's hit 29 homers. He's driven in 100. Killer power bat. I don't get how DraftKings creates these prices. 62 for Jose Ramirez makes sense. 4,000 for Jose Ramirez makes sense. 34 homers, 35 steals, 245 ISO. Absolute superstar and their best player. Top priority in a high priority lineup. David Fry, catcher only on DraftKings, but that's fine because no issues blocking out Bo Naylor. 2,800 for 2 positions on FanDuel. 13 home runs, a 181 ISO, 127 WRC+. Didn't pay off that torrid pace that he started the season with, but he's been effective. He's been good throughout 370 plate appearances now. Stephen Kwan getting on at a 356 clip, creating runs 24% better than average. Hit for a little bit of power, stole a few bases along the way, but more of a table setter, but a dynamite table setter. If you're going to the White Sox, Corey Julks off the top, 29-23. Not a bad price to find him, but only a 75 WRC+, over 176 chances, sub 300 on base like everybody else on this team. He hasn't been good at all this season. Mix and match quality, I guess he's cheap to lead off a stack if you're stacking White Sox, but again, I do think that's a mistake. 44.32 for Lubob is a great price, but he's not having a great year. 85 WRC+, just a 172 ISO, 14 homers and 21 steals in 350 plate appearances. Got really thrown off kilter, I think, by missing that time and has really not found consistent footing all season long. Just has big spikes of upside. Benintendi, 34-27, 16 home runs. The power surge has been nice, but the output is very infrequent and irregular, and it's not what he's supposed to be good at. He's supposed to be a bat-on-ball kind of a player. So, a weird season. 12.70 makes him somewhat playable in the home run model. I would probably consider him more of a stack player than a one-off player. Andrew Vaughn, 13.10, 17 homers, a 158 ISO. Probably their second best hitter, 10.1% barrels, 42.8% hard hits on the season, but he's not any good at all. Corey Lee does have 10 home runs as a cheap catcher. Again, he's going to be their most popular hitter, but in the mid-single digits, you can go there, 26-24. It's very cheap. More of a DraftKings play than a FanDuel play. Lenyn Sosa, 24-23. Effective bat on ball so far. 41.9% hard hits in 306 plate appearances. Hasn't amounted to anything, but at least he puts bat on ball. Doesn't really strike out all that much. I didn't notice Brian Ramos got the call. Brian Ramos is actually an interesting option. 2,500 at third base. Dead min price on FanDuel at third base. That's, all right. That makes them slightly more interesting. Wish he had a better spot in the lineup. In Double A last season, 342 plate appearances, 14 home runs, 271, 369, 457. Created runs 22% better than average with a 186 ISO. This year in Triple A, 279 plate appearances, 8 homers, 6 steals. He added 2 homers and 2 steals to that in 98 Double A plate appearances this year. Slash line was just 263, 339, 416, just a 152 ISO. Kind of off the mark this year a little bit. Just 22. He profiles pretty well. He's a player I was somewhat interested in. I actually took him in on a minor league draft this year because I thought he was close to the show. He's kind of his most likely trajectory is one of those like Harold Ramirez kind of players, like effective line drive guy who does hit the ball hard but doesn't really hit it out of the park all that often, but can give you like 280 to 300, can drive in some runs, can give you like a 180-ish kind of ISO, can double but doesn't hit a ton of home runs. That's the kind of player I think he profiles as. So he's not uninteresting at the dead min at third base on FanDuel. He fits in well there, and you could go like if you were choosing to stack this team, Lubob, Vaughn. I honestly taking the double discount and going Lenyn Sosa and Brian Ramos second base, third base is not completely terrible. You're spending $2,600 a player for 2 guys that are well over the magic number for home runs, one guy doubling the magic number, another guy at 6.86 on the home run model is not bad for Sosa, and then a guy not really getting credit for it at the dead mid price at third base, who is a decent line drive hitter, hypothetically. You could do worse. Now that I know Brian Ramos is at the bottom of the lineup, I'm coming around a little bit to the idea of maybe getting to a few light stacks just because they're super low owned and they're really cheap and they're going up against kind of a nothing pitcher. More likely than not, they're going to completely fail. But now they're probably going to fail in my lineup because I kind of do like how cheap that stack is. And it can buy you some interesting things like maybe some Yankees bats, and I'm a sucker for my Yankees. Yeah, let's just take home runs. What is that? I want to look at that. Or could probably buy you Dodgers, although a lot of the Dodgers you can move, let's see, you can move Mookie off second base, put him in the outfield. It's probably not the best team to stack with the Dodgers. I kind of think it fits well with the Yanks. Thinking it through. Right, because Yanks are fairly outfield heavy. And this stack would not be. You go Vaughn over Rizzo. Ramos third. Second base with Sosa. I can't believe I'm getting excited about a White Sox stack. So that leaves me shortstop open. I don't love that. That's the problem. I guess we one off shortstop in that configuration maybe. And you get 3 outfielders. So you go Judge, Soto. And then Dominguez is super cheap as well. Welcome to the lineup building show. Wow, Dominguez for 25 is just dumb. So, I know this isn't what we typically do here. But hypothetically, let's say we want Rodon with the Yankees. A 3-man Yankee stack, 4 White Sox, those 4 that I just talked about, with Rodon on the hill. Leaves you 3,100 to 1-off shortstop, which gives you Sedan Rafaela exactly if you wanted him. You could get Dansby, you could get Tommy Edman, Nico, Rocio, Jose Iglesias. If you go to any other pitcher, the next most highly priced pitcher is an $8,500 David Festa. FanDuel pitching is absurdly cheap with all these absurd prices. That gives you 43, which gives you Bobby Witt, gives you Mookie Betts, gives you Francisco Lindor, Zach Neto. The only shortstop you can't reach there is Gunnar. He's $100 too expensive for that. So then if you go from David Festa down by $100, well, you can't do that because it's Singer against the Yankees. But let's say you go down to 83 for Brian Bayo. Then you could have Gunnar, but then you'd be facing the pitcher that he's against. So you dip to 78 for McGill, and then you can have Gunnar. It's not a bad stack, guys. Kind of like it. I think I'm going to take this option. That, and then do we want Bobby Witt in Yankee Stadium? Do we want Mookie Betts against the pretty vulnerable Kyle Hendricks? Frankie Lindor? It's a pretty good choice to have. Pop that guy in there. Contest full. Oh no. Did I not? I never saved my placeholder. Gonna have to work on that. FanDuel contest is small today. 4,600 entries. Looks like it filled. It's really annoying. All right, hold on. No, whatever. I'll remember. All right. So, oddly cheap, moderately interesting, given the power they're showing. But it's a terrible baseball team, and it's probably going to fail, and you probably shouldn't do it. Miguel Vargas does have a 9.0 in the home run model. He's hit 4 this season in 183 plate appearances, but he's pretty bad overall and a 60 WRC+, and has never really given us anything overly compelling. This game goes Guardians bats, White Sox bats, neither pitcher. Angels and the Twins. Angels lineup is in, the Twins is not. I'm going to be annoyed when I don't get into the FanDuel tournament and then that lineup wins. So somebody, if I don't get in, somebody go play that lineup. David Festa, popular pickup this week for this start. Gearing up against a gettable Angel squad with a 28.8% strikeout rate in this confirmed lineup and a lot of vulnerability to right-handed pitching. Festa's pitching to a very, very good 29.1% strikeout rate this season so far. In his 9 starts, is 47 1/3. He's run into some issues with some runs allowed, 4.75 ERA, but the sparkling 3.29 xFIP tells you how good he actually is. 12.8% swinging, nearly a 30% CSW. Excellent strike thrower. 6.5% walk rate, not bad at all so far at walking anybody. Not really terrible in terms of the contact that he's allowed. It's a fly ball pitcher. He's made a couple of mistakes, and they've gotten out of the ballpark against 4.02% home run rate. But these aren't egregious contact numbers. Small sample still. We'll see what it becomes. But overall, the kid's very talented. Another guy on the Dynasty squad. I actually called up DJ Hertz for this week instead because he's facing the Marlins during the week, but I'm actually probably not going to end up starting him. Detmer's on the other side of this one, 7,700 apiece, 26.7% Ks in 69 innings, 13 starts in the show this year, 5.87 ERA, but a 3.96 xFIP, 9.7% walk rate. The walks are too high, the whip is too high, the opportunities against are too many, but on the right day, Reed Detmers can be a very, very good left-handed pitcher. 13.5% swinging, 29.9% CSW so far this season in the show in a mixed sample. Was pitching very well in the minors down over the last couple of starts before the trade deadline. Was really buzzy around the trade deadline. People trying to pick him off from the Angels who just apparently don't appreciate how talented he is. Should just be a regular major league pitcher. Totally playable at these prices, even against a pretty good Twins lineup that only has a 19.8% strikeout rate for this projected version. You could push that up depending on what they do with some of these bats. But they're going to be around between 19 and the low 20s, 22%, somewhere in that territory. Believable that Detmers could get to a 1-4 or somewhere thereabouts against this lineup, though. And on the right day, can shut them down completely. They're showing a little bit of power against. Jeffers is a decent catcher power bat, 20 home runs on the season and 8.35 in the home run model. Royce Lewis, 13 plus in the homer model. He's cooled off. He's down to 248, 308, 518, but the ISO's still sitting at 270. He's got 16 home runs in his 253 plate appearances. Nobody was going to maintain the pace that he was at early in the season when he first came back, but he's got a lot of ability. He's a very good player, 51-34. The price has kind of come down from the peaks. Not a bad option at all against a gettable lefty. Jose Miranda, another example of that line drive kind of a hitter, 299, 337, 466, a 126 WRC+. 9 home runs. He's just very effective, puts the ball in play a ton, doesn't really strike out, doesn't draw a ton of walks, hits the ball very hard when he puts it in play, always involved, always capable of being in a lineup for very fair prices. Carlos Santana, 35-27, has 20 home runs on the season, a 185 ISO. Still very low strikeout, good walk rate, gets involved a ton, and not at all expensive for the quality. These Twins remain very, very cheap for the potential upside. You've got several multi-position players with Kyle Farmer, Brooks Lee, Willie Castro in this version of the lineup. On FanDuel, you add Austin Martin to that mix. Everybody's cheap. Nobody's been great this season, but everybody's been at least a little bit of a contributor. The most frequent contributor has been Willie Castro, 569 plate appearances, 7% better than average for run creation, 11 homers, 13 steals. It's been mixed quality. He disappears for a week, then he roars back to life for a week. Typically, when I've got him in the lineup, he's not playing well. When I've got him out of the lineup for the week in the Dynasty squad, he is playing well. He was a pickup this year. Not a high-end player, but a guy who scores some runs. 79 runs scored on the season. Runs are an important fantasy category in season long. It's annoying. Bottom of the lineup, it's just mix and match quality basically from everybody after Carlos Santana in this version of the lineup. We will see what they end up going with. None of their big lefties in this version of the lineup, so bear that in mind. On the Angels side, if you're drawing against David Festa, which I do think you can do, and especially if you build a big wall of Festa, then I think it's worth hedging a couple shares against. But like I said, under the surface, he's been pitching better than even what the surface numbers look like, and he is pretty good. So I prefer Festa between the two, but it might be a low-owned angle because I do think Festa is going to get popular. A lot of people are going to go in that direction because of how buzzy he is and what the strikeout potential looks like for the price. He's only gone more than 5 innings once, by the way. Went 6 2 starts ago against Atlanta. I think we were on him for that one. Struck out 7, gave up 2 earned runs, 1 home run, but was very effective. All the other starts, he's gone a maximum of exactly 5. Hasn't even pitched into the 6th. So you get a little bit of question around what does my quality start upside look like on FanDuel with Festa on top. If you're going to Angels, though, Taylor Ward, 43-31, one of their top priority bats, 22 homers, a 187 ISO, up to a 108 WRC+. It's kind of come back to life a little bit along with some of these players. Zach Neto's just having a good year, 20 home runs, 29 steals, a 189 ISO, 116 WRC+. Again, typically going to be like the top man on that second tier of shortstops where you're not talking about the star caliber guys, you're just talking about the good players. He's up there. He's one of the better options. 3,400 on FanDuel might be a little bit high, but with everybody else cheap in this lineup, you can average it right back down. 4,500 totally affordable on DK. Shanuel for 3,427. At least you get good bat-on-ball skills. You get a good on-base at 335. He's dipped to a 98 WRC+, but with his skill set, he could definitely stay involved. It's more about the guys behind him, honestly, coming through than anything else. He's a good option at first base. Low strikeout, high walk. One of their better bats. Brandon Drury for 26-25. Why not hit him cleanup? He's only slashing 167, 245, 221 with a .053 ISO and 3 home runs on the season. 3.7% barrels and 36% hard hits. Yeah, let's give him more opportunities. Weird lineup. I guess they couldn't have Anthony Rendon there today, so they put Brandon Drury in that spot instead because they think that the best spot in the lineup to punt is the cleanup spot. There's some bad managers in baseball. Mickey Moniak, 33-27, up to 13 homers and 7 steals, a 166 ISO. He's also kind of come around a little bit of late, but still kind of a mixed bag for quality. Spikes some decent upside games. Once upon a time, he was expected to be somebody, but I don't know, kind of missed that train. Logan O'Hoppe, 4,029, 119 homers, a 170 ISO, mix and match caliber catcher with some power upside. Makes very good contact, 11.9% barrels and 46.6% hard hits. Nico Cavadas has made mediocre contact so far in the show. He struck out nearly 40% of the time. He's hit 2 home runs in his 53 chances, but we're also at 106, 208, 234. A lot of bad in with the good so far, but he does have believable power upside as a super cheap first baseman for 2,200 from the left side. Michael Stefanich, 2,400, 2,300 mix and match player. Bryce Teodosio, dead min price on both sides. Teodosio, 5 home runs, but 40 stolen bases in 462 plate appearances in AAA this year. 276, 339, 418. Mix and match wraparound kind of a guy, maybe. Dead min price. If you're already going to Angels, it's not terrible. You grab him, you throw him on top of Ward, Neto, Shanuel, and, let's say O'Hoppe on DraftKings, maybe? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Gives me 2 outfielders, a decent shortstop, an okay first baseman, and a $4,000 catcher for $3,600 apiece. It's probably better as just a short 3-man, leaving this bottom guys out, but it's playable, and you'd be targeting a very highly owned pitcher who has been, again, good, but better by the expected advanced stats than the actual just runs that he's allowed. the home runs that have actually gotten out of the park, despite, again, contact that dictates this should be lower. So does Festa have one more outing that isn't quite great? Probably not, but I do think it's at least playable on the Angels side. And they're very cheap. This goes Festa, Detmers, despite what the projections say. Twins bats, Angels bats. Gofius is here, says Povich has the sauce. Yeah, kid's good. Yeah, he's another one that's on the Dynasty squad. No! James Earl Jones died? Oh, man. Rip Darth Vader. Hang on, I gotta do it. Somebody beat me to the announcing that in our group text message, but nobody beat me to sending the gif of the Darth Vader no from Revenge of the Sith. One of the worst moments in film history. Oh man, that's a bummer. James Earl Jones, really a good actor. Like, you know, it was obviously the voice was like the thing. It was just on my TV. I was watching Clear and Present Danger before. That sucks. This is CNN. I cannot do James Earl Jones. The voice of Mufasa. Had a brother. His brother was Thomas Earl Jones, I think his name was. If you ever seen The Sting, he's the guy in the beginning of The Sting with Robert Redford, where they do the wallet scam. He's that guy. He was also in the movie Sleepaway Camp. If you've ever seen Sleepaway Camp, he played one of the cooks. Robert Earl Jones. I think he's dead too. I think he was older. Anyway, last game up, Kyle Hendricks, Walker Buehler. Buehler had been short-started since coming back, probably just dealing with 5 innings again. Does have some K upside. 17.9% though on the season, over 54 innings and 12 starts has not been good. He's a greatly diminished version of the pitcher that we used to know. Last time out though, struck out 6 against the Angels. He did give up 2 home runs, but only 2 earned runs, 5 hits. That was probably his most successful outing since coming back. Earlier in the season, he peaked at 7 strikeouts. He accomplished that twice, once against the Reds, once against the Rockies. That was all the way back in May. And again, missed a chunk of time here in the middle of the season. Cubs, this version of the lineup, 21.5% strikeouts. Overall for the season, this active roster. Oh, you can't do that. Go all the way back to the team board. Against righties, the Cubs active roster, 21.9, but a little bit of an individual by individual uptick depending on who we get in the lineup. I don't think we've got it yet. Nope. So maybe Buehler's got that 6-7K upside if all goes according to plan. Maybe we get the 6th inning out of him. I think it's another case of just being a better buy on DraftKings, though, at 7,000 than chasing the quality start for 72 on FanDuel. Even if you don't get the quality start, you're not shot in the foot completely on a short pitching slate, though. There's no guarantees that Rodon succeeds and no guarantee Bassett or anybody else up there succeeds. So I think Buehler is playable on that slate. It's just everything's so cheap that you don't necessarily need to go to the value pitching. So it does just become a competition of who do I think is actually going to succeed because I can afford anything I want. Hendricks on the other side, probably not going to be that guy. 15.6% strikeouts on the year, a 6.60 ERA with a 4.48 xFIP. Yes, the xFIP is a run and a half lower than the ERA, but it's still not good at all. 1.51 whip is terrible. Gives up a decent amount of home runs despite limiting premium contact. 33.3% hard hits, 85.5 miles an hour of exit velo. Not bad at all. but 4.23% home runs. And that's entirely believable because of how much of a contact-focused pitcher he is. The Dodgers, elite home run hitters, 3 guys above the magic number. Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman just under the magic number with believable upside beyond it. Will Smith is not a pitcher. One of these days they'll change this so that I don't have to fix it every time. So Will Smith checking in at 7.60 in the home run model. Kevin Lux, Tommy Edman, Miguel Rojas down lineup for the Dodgers. Everybody down there is basically at least playable. Tommy Edman is appealing. He's got a little bit of stolen base upside, can drive the ball, 12, 15 home run kind of a hitter when he's playing a full season. The on-base comes and goes, and with that goes his ability to create runs above average. He's at a 75 WRC plus at 296 on base. Stolen 4 bases so far, but just getting his footing for the season, only 71 plate appearances. Rojas at the bottom, 35-27, 3 positions on FanDuel. Shortstop only is not great on DraftKings. I'd rather have him at second or elsewhere. 286, 325, 407 though, a 106 WRC plus. Interesting enough as a cheap wraparound on a team that you might need a discount to get to. Gavin Lux for 38-27 is cheap. He's got 10 home runs and 434 chances and 98 WRC plus. But the stars are 1 through 6. Shohei Ohtani, 46 home runs, 46 stolen bases, a 327 ISO, 169 WRC plus for the second best player in baseball. 6,300, 4,200 for Mookie Betts, 16 home runs, 14 steals. Easy enough to reach if you're stacking up a bunch of cheap options. 210 ISO, you can one-off them across 3 positions on FanDuel. Outfield only on DraftKings kind of sucks. The 3 positions, especially including second base, is just fantastic on FanDuel. Makes him super playable. Freddie, 53, 34, 21 homers, a 203 ISO. Dynamite option at first base. Teoscar Hernandez, cheap, 5,000, 3,600. Or not cheap, but affordable for the upside. 28 home runs, 10 steals, a 222 ISO, a 128 WRC plus, 14.3% barrels. And then Max Muncy at 4,800, 3,400 at third base, 10.23 in the home run model. He's hit 12 in his 222 chances, a 264 ISO, 131 WRC plus. Don't sleep on Max Muncy. I think people just kind of tend to forget how good he is because he missed a chunk of the season. Muncy's an elite power bat going up against a guy who gives up nothing but home runs. On the Cubs side, you can throw Cubbies at Walker Buehler. It's a decent run-creating team, a lot of good on-base options, some decent power options, a lot of stolen base upside throughout. Everybody is just kind of mid as far as the home run output, the stolen base output, but a lot of guys who do both things, fill both categories. Like Ian Happ from the top for just 4,600, 3,200. He's hit 23 home runs and stolen 11 bases. Another player should probably be a little bit more expensive. Gets on base very frequently at 344. He's created runs 27% better than average. He's got a 215 ISO as their best power bat on top of everything this season. No reason in the world he should be 4,600. They brought the price down somewhat on DraftKings on Cody Bellinger back to 5,100. That price had oddly spiked the other day. But Ian Happ, between the two, should probably be the more expensive player. Michael Busch for 38-27 in the 2 spot, 16 home runs, a 175 ISO. An effective season, not a great standout season, but he's barreling the ball 11.1%. Draws his walks, gets involved, 113 WRC plus. Not a terrible option. First base is an okay spot to find him. Seiya Suzuki's been mashing all season. 19 home runs, 13 steals, 204 ISO. Very good overall numbers, 271, 348, 475. He's created runs at a team-leading 30% better than average. 12.1% barrels and 48.1% hard hits. More of a balls-in-the-park line drive kind of a hitter, but he's very effective at doing that, and he gives you a lot of upside. Bellinger's just been okay. 15 home runs, 9 steals, and 494 chances. 263, 324, 427% better than average for run creation. Low strikeout, a lot of balls in play, and a lot of upside to spike a ceiling game. Isaac Paredes, 19 home runs, hasn't been great since joining the Cubs, down to a 170 ISO, 115 WRC plus. Still low strikeout, high walk, though, does fit the mold for this team. Nico Horner, mix and match quality option, not really getting on base as much as he needs to. 28 stolen bases is not the elite total that we would need from him to make him an overly appealing player. He's mix and match quality. Dansby, up to 14 home runs and 15 steals. We've seen a lot more out of him over time. Just kind of a bad year, but is still making very good contact at the plate at the very least. Crow Armstrong had that nice little surge up to 8 home runs and 26 steals. He's been more effective at the plate in the second half, but still, a lot of raw skills, raw ability, tons and tons of speed, but still just kind of finding his way. He's playable, but he's not high-end right now. 35-27. Miguel Amaya, just a mix and match, everyday kind of an option at catcher. And that's it. So this game goes Dodgers bats, Cubs bats, cheap Walker Buehler, no Hendo. Back over to the board here one last time. What's up, Tiz? Oh, Bassett scratched. When did that break? When did that break? Underdog doesn't have that yet. That I see. Ryan Burr, apparently, for Blue Jays. Apologies for that, guys. I didn't have it. Ryan Burr is going to open. And then, so it's probably Burr Yarbrough. So, don't play Blue Jays pitching. Take another one off the board. That shortens your pitching slate. Carlos Rodon kind of standing alone up at the top, separated by a couple of points from Reed Detmers. The Burr-Yarbrough combination is not coming anywhere near where Bassett lands. Yarbs will probably be somewhere between Jared Schuster and Kyle Hendricks in a bulk relief if I gave it to him. We'll see what I do with it as I update things in the next couple of minutes. But Rodon, not a safe spot. I like that Kansas City team. They're not terrible for strikeouts. Yankee Stadium works against pitchers, so not ideal. Worth it at the top, and again, on a day where you're gonna have an abundance of salary, you just go there. But there's no real gigantic gulf between him and the less experienced guys on this slate, like Feste against the Angels, Detmers against Minnesota could definitely succeed at a much cheaper price. McGill on the other side of that Toronto game definitely has upside and probably has a more clear path to the win bonus now that the Mets are going to be facing, an opener and Ryan Yarbrough. So feed some upside there. Singer on the other side of the Yankees game could definitely beat that Yankees team and find some Ks along the way. He's good enough to do that. He's been good enough this year to do that. But there's also a lot of danger, a lot of downside in facing the Yankees. Duh. Tune in tomorrow to see what other ground I break. Cantillo's a no against the White Sox, but you could argue for it at least. And considering that the slate got shorter, maybe he finds his way into some shares because he's only 69, 62 and does have believable upside for strikeouts against that lineup. It's just a lot of appreciable downside. Povich gets more playable against the Red Sox, 74-68, with the Red Sox, at least their two key lefties struggle against lefties, and overall they haven't been as good against lefties this season. But the ballpark works against Povich. All of those very good, very effective right-handed hitters work against Povich. If you're looking at Red Sox bats, Refsnyder's a high-end option, but everybody's going to go there and knows about him. O'Neill is a super high-end option. He's a super-duper star against lefties, and you definitely want to include Tyler O'Neill. But if you're skipping a popular Refsnyder, go to Romy Gonzalez because he'll be lower-owned, and he's been very, very good against lefties this season. I kind of prefer the Red Sox bats in that equation, but I think Povich could get there on the right day. He is a talented young lefty, and he's very cheap. Buehler finds his way to more shares there too with Bassett going down. The 5-6 inning thing becomes less of a problem with the lack of depth, the lack of reliability that a lot of these pitchers are gonna push our way. So on a day where a lot of teams are showing offensive upside, a short start from Walker Buehler wouldn't be the most tragic thing, especially if you find some Ks along the way. So I'm coming around to that option. If you want to go expensive bats, he's definitely on the board. Bayo's the same thing at 83, 82, 8,000, could succeed and gets pushed up the board for the lack of options. And then Hendo's a no and Schuster's a no at the bottom of the board. Here's your home run model one last time. So I'm going to punch out after we do this. I'm going to update baseball projections. I'm going to go through football, make sure I got everything updated. And then I'll get the football show scheduled. Probably be 6:30. I think that's fair. Give me an hour. Lubob top of the board against Cantillo. Ohtani in that spot against Hendo and several other Dodgers not showing bad marks down the board for power. Some of the unsuppressible Yankees obviously up at the top. O'Neill is a monster against lefties. Devers is drawing a decent home run mark despite the lack of quality this year against lefties. He's got more to give against lefties than what we've seen from him this year. It's not great, but it's not quite as bad as it's been this year for his, the course of his career. So totally playable if you're going to Red Sox. The slate this kind of reflects the, for a short slate, that's a bunch of guys at or about the magic number for home run upside. Kind of reflects the offensive nature of this slate. With that in mind, you guys, let me punch out of here. 39 of you guys out there watching. I didn't think that many people were still going to care about this baseball slate. I appreciate every single one of you. Hit the like button if you get a chance. Subscribe if you haven't. Come on back, 6:30 for the football slate, for the football show for tonight's Monday Night Football slate. Jets and the Niners. A lot to talk about there. Should be an interesting game. Bob Jones and Woody are duking things out in the chat about something. You guys rock. We'll be back in just a little bit. Let me go update some projections and get some things done, and then we'll talk some football in a little while. Good luck out there tonight in baseball. Somebody go win something, and we'll see you.